So we're finally being pushed to evolve, but there are some things that are never going to change. And one of them, Mike, is my deep affection and my deep gratitude that I feel for you, for being my teacher and my brother, my fellow Eagle Scout. Ladies and gentlemen, your very own Michael Khan.
I never fell in love with editing. I never fell in love with editing. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't sure about it. But I was a good assistant, and I assisted a lot of fellas. And I was assisting a fellow by the name of Danny Nathan, and he was with Bing Crosby Productions. And he said, why don't you take a scene and cut it? I said, I don't know what to do. He said, take the scene and cut it. So I took the scene and I cut it. And he looks at it and says, let's make more changes. I did it again. He looked at it, not yet, make more changes. I said, "Gee, well." Eventually he said, okay. And he put it in the show. And they ran it for the Crosby people. The executive said to Danny Nathan, boy, you did a good job on that scene. And he says, I didn't do it, Mike Khan did it. Well, anyway, I had a friend, Jerry London. And Jerry London was just starting a show for Bing Crosby called Hogan's Heroes. And I was on that for like 6 years. I'd done over 140 episodes, and I really learned editing on that show because each half hour was a different director. I came back and forth, and I learned all the different styles and how these directors worked. George C. Scott loved Hogan's Heroes. He went to the writer, he went to Artie Jr., he said, you know, I'm doing this first picture and for Warner Brothers, I'm going to direct it and act in it, and I'd like that editor who does Hogan's Heroes. And everybody wondered, who is this TV editor that's ending up doing features with the George C. Scott? And I realized that editing features, it had nothing to do with knowledge. It had to do with how you feel about something. You try to make something work, and intuitively you feel something. And I had to learn to come in contact with that. Steve was looking for somebody after Jaws. And I went into his office and I met him, and very short conversation. 3 or 4 days later, I get a call on the phone, and he says, why don't you meet me out at Devil's Tower, Wyoming, and, you know, and we'll work on this picture. And that's what happened. What was different was he was incredibly knowledgeable on what's possible and what works. And it was easier to work with him because if I had a problem, he understood what my problem was. On Close Encounters, my first film with him, there was a time when Neary is running up the hill and trying to get away from the helicopter, and he's going to the other side. I couldn't put it together. I didn't know what to do. So I went to Stephen. I said, Stephen, you know, I don't know what to do here. And he said, isn't that wonderful? You're coming to me and ask me what to do. He said, that's an honest. He liked that. Right. He liked that I was straightforward and honest. I didn't know what to do. So we sat, we talked, and then I put it together, and it was okay. And that's the kind of relationship we have. If he asks me to do something and I have trouble doing it, I say, hey, Steve, you better help me out on this because I'm lost, you know. If I try to cut a scene a different way, right, he likes that because maybe he'll give another point of view. But then again, if it doesn't work, then he'll help me make it work, and I've eliminated that option. But that's what's great about Steven. If he has a feeling that something works, he goes with his feeling. You got to have a strong argument to get him away from that. When Harrison Ford turns around the first time, after he used his whip on the gun, that was his introduction in the picture. And also the idea of making a lot of cuts with the whip was a technique that we used for the first time. And I think it paid off. You know, what do you think was the most difficult part of the editing of that whole scene? The most difficult part for me was that wall coming down. Every time it came down, the next cut it was higher. And the next cut it was higher. But I got away with it. Nobody ever mentioned it. I never get bored. Never get not here, not, you know, at the moviola or something. You know, you have control over a multi-million-dollar product. I'm sitting here and they spend $150 million on a film. And I'm sitting here like this, and well, let's say that's worth $6 million, that cut. You know, I hate to say this, but I almost never look at movies that I've done. I don't like to go back and look at them. One show doesn't equate to the other, so I try to leave that baggage behind and I'm starting like it's the first time I'm cutting a film. Jurassic Park, we were in Poland, and there was a saucer up there. We'd be talking to Lucasfilm, and we'd be seeing shots from Jurassic Park for the first time. It was exciting. But Schindler, you got to compartmentalize your life in the business. When I'm working on this scene, I'm just working on this scene. We had 45-degree shutter, strobing effect. We had a streaker camera, which added vertical streaking through the frame. We had a shaker camera, a variable speed drill motor that had shaking effect. And we also had step printing. We shot at 12 frames a second, and then we doubled it to bring it up to 24 frames a second. And how you put all those together was the trick. And I'd never had anything like this before. You know, how do you start? Where do you start? I don't cut from what I call knowledge. I have to come in tune. I have to feel it. Because Steven feels it. And I want to be on his wavelength. And he does a lot of things intuitively. When he's on the set, he feels it. He feels another shot. Or here we're running. He said, what about that shot we didn't use? Or, you know, he feels it. And I really relate to that.
I'm afraid I don't.
See, I decided that the Constitution gives me war powers. But no one knows just exactly what those powers are. Some say they don't exist. I don't know. I decided I needed them to exist to uphold my oath to protect the Constitution.
Some of the best things you could do editorially, in a lot of cases, is not to cut. You don't make a cut. Because the name is editor and cutter, it doesn't mean you have to cut. You know, if the scene works great, don't cut. It takes a lot of courage to do that because the director shot all these angles and you're not cutting. But it helps the feature, especially in a feature. It's my whole life now. Being an editor is my life. It's become a passion. And with Steven, I'm sure it's a passion. And when two people work together and they care enough about the film, there's nothing too difficult to do. You know, you can overcome anything, make things better. And it's nothing you learn in school. In school you learn, you know. But here you're rewriting a script, you're doing, this is where the film is made. This is where it happens, man. This is it. Thank you so much, Steven, for such a terrific introduction. And for so many remarkable years we shared together editing these movies. When you love your work and you work with people you love, editing transforms itself into more than just work. It becomes your passion and your life. Your life.